Council and the Government Center in Lake Placid. I'd ask everybody to please make sure your phones are either off or on vibrate. And I'll ask everybody to please stand. I think we have it, I got it here somewhere. Mr. Clemente?
No, Pastor Hurley.
All right, Pastor Hurley, okay. We're trying to read this thing. Not here either. Mr. Attorney, would you please do a blessing for us?
If you bow your head. Dear Lord, bless this town and Lake Placid's version of democracy. Please give us your wisdom and guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Holbrook.
Here.
Councilmember Royce. Here. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Sapp. Councilmember Hayes. Here.
Okay. We'll go to consent agenda 1, A through F.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of consent agenda 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments from the podium? Seeing none, we'll take it to the audience. Hearing none, bring it back. Pull the council, please.
Councilmember Royce.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes. Yes.
We'll go to consent agenda 2.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve consent agenda 2.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments from the podium? Hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Okay, seeing none, bring it back. Pull the council.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes. Yes. Councilmember Royce.
Abstain, that business belongs to a family member. I have filed the proper paperwork with the clerk.
Okay. Okay, in presentations, request to speak, we have a honored guest with us. Would you like to go ahead and introduce him?
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor. Assistant County Administrator Nick Sawyer is here with us. I know several of you all have been asking about where we stand with the new county fire and EMS station, and Mr. Sawyer is going to give us an update.
All right, Nick Sawyer, Deputy County Administrator, Highlands County, for the record. Thank you for letting me address you today. Before I get started, I want to assure you that this is a priority for the county. Unfortunately, the news is not glowing. We had gotten through construction documents for the building. We were working on just a landscape plan, and we were ready to rock. Unfortunately, we realized that the apparatus that we are required to keep here to maintain the ISO rating, to include the ladder truck, didn't fit in the facility. And with that, the driveway and turn radius wasn't appropriate either. So we have literally had to go back to the drawing board to have new plans, new design. The original design was considerably over budget, so we're also looking at cost-cutting measures in that. But we have had to go back to the drawing board, redo designs, and then go back through construction documents. So that is where we stand today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
If I might, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sawyer, if I say something that's inaccurate, let me know, but there's obviously also new people that are working on this from both the emergency services has new leadership, and the county has new folks that are in the projects department that are going to shepherd this through. So one of the other things that's happened is there's been a almost complete turnover in the folks that were primarily working on this project. Is that correct?
Almost. It wasn't an almost complete turnover. It was more than a complete turnover. Including myself. We have our capital projects manager. We have turned that position over. Our deputy fire chief and our fire chief are both interim. We have recently turned those positions over. And we have, I have placed this project in one of our seasoned, experienced infrastructure project managers' hands. He's the one that's been running with it for the last several weeks and realized the deficiencies in the design. So he will maintain on the project for consistency, as well as capital projects driving the project. I am personally driving the project, and our new interim fire chief is actively involved.
And again, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's important, and I appreciate that Nick and these guys caught this, because it is having the right apparatus for the greater Lake Placid area is important, as he stated, for the ISO rating and for public safety, but, you know, in particular to help drive insurance rates down. We would not want to lose that apparatus, so it's important they get it correct.
And the truck in question is the one that was brought in when the Holiday Inn was built, the ladder truck to meet that ISO rating. It cannot leave Lake Placid. But for it to count, it can't just be in Lake Placid. It has to be in Lake Placid undercover. It has to be in a garage for it to count towards the ISO rating. And that does help with the insurance rates, and so we're trying to be sensitive to that. Make sure we build the right station for the right apparatus to meet all the needs.
Okay. And again, in multiple conversations with Mr. Sawyer and Ms. Herner, this, as he said, is a priority that hopefully this will all move very quickly. We'll be back and moving forward, and they know that we've had conversations just to make sure they are not waiting on anything from us. I know that they've had conversations with Mr. McCarthy about this, so I think we're going to be moving quickly forward after this, but.
I agree, and that's the path we're on. Our last conversation, which was on Thursday, this past week, we are working towards a collaboration plan with you to come back together with your planning team with the direction we hope to move forward in as a cost-saving measure to do a metal structured building with a facade built onto it that meets your code. But that's something we have to come back to the table with, and we plan to do that in the very near future.
I have one question. Best case scenario, and what is your estimation of construction starting?
Sir, I don't want to let you know what my project manager told me about that, but we're still probably several years down the road.
Years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that is surely, construction documents, things like that take six months or so to come back to get the drawings and that portion done for the station that we had designed. That process took over a year. Also, we have significant budgeting concerns. We came in more than twice the budget for the last station, and while we realized we had an obligation to cover that, that was a significant cost.
Okay. We've been at this
It's been a long time, sir, yes.
a long time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Is this station that you're going to end up building going to be the same size that you finally broke it down to? Because it originally was bigger for more personnel, and then you broke it down to less, and are we going less again, or?
So I think we will go less and modular on the personnel side, whereas it'll be large enough to house the crew that needs to be there. Where it will be larger is on the apparatus side. The bays need to be taller and wider, and honestly, more of them. So we need to find a way to make that fit into a budget mold. So.
Okay.
Yes. Well, thank you for letting me be here today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, we'll now go into the public hearings. First one is ordinance number 2023-10. This will be on second reading. An ordinance of Town of Lake Placid repealing sections, amending sections, creating sections, and restating the town regional utility code and creating a unified utility rate for water distribution and wastewater collection and treatment, providing for severance and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion we approve and adopt ordinance on second reading of ordinance 2023-10.
Second.
Okay. Next is ordinance, well, it's 2023-10 utility rates. Is that part of it?
That's the one you read already. You
Okay.
read the title.
Yeah, I don't see it here, though.
For A.
You got it there?
Now I've clicked the plus sign, yeah, it should be there. There it is.
There you go.
Oh, that's the one I read.
Yes, yes. So we have
Okay.
first and second on it.
So we're done with that one? Or
We
do
have
we
to
still
call
have?
roll call.
We got to work on,
Yes.
Comments from the public?
oh, yeah, okay. All right, ordinance 2023-10, I just read into the minutes. We'll now open up to the public for comment if there is any. All right, seeing none.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, as she's coming up, we're now going to Dollar General zoning change. Do we need to read the ordinance?
Yes, please.
Okay, ordinance number 2023-03, an ordinance of the town of Lake Placid amending the zoning classification of a property located at the southeast section of the north entrance of Lake Henry Drive and US 27 North, bearing parcel ID P243629 A0000200030, and lying in section 24, Township 36, South Range 29 East, Highlands County, Florida, from County B2 Limited Business District to PCD Plank Commercial Development to allow for a retail store, and adding section 160-18 of the code of the town of Lake Placid entitled Dollar General Plan Commercial Development Ordinance, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. See if I can get my presentation going here. Okay, so this is case LPTC 23.002RZ. That's just our internal tracking number. The request is from Palmetto Lake Placid, Lake Henry Drive, LLC, and it is for a zoning change from Highlands County B2 Limited Business District to Town of Lake Placid PCD Planned Commercial Development. Now, as part of this PD request, we also include adding a section of our land development regulations to include the planned commercial development district and all the language requirements. Also, a development agreement will be coming at second hearing. Again, this is just first hearing. So, I'm sorry, first reading. At second reading, we will have some additional information in the development agreement. These maps demonstrate the existing future land use and existing zoning. So it has the existing Town of Lake Placid commercial general future land use, and we need to convert the zoning to town zoning.
Dana, could you speak in the mic where everyone can hear you a little bit better?
Yep, thank you. Okay, so I am going to go through this rather quickly because we have had first reading before, and nothing has changed as far as the conditions on the PD at this time. It was tabled the first time so that the town attorney and the applicant could have some additional time to work out some of the conditions and kinks. They have come to some agreement, and we'll see more about those revised conditions at second reading. But the use is basically for a retail store. The completion dates would be 12 months for construction to begin, 18 months for construction to be completed. And the height of the building would not exceed 1 story, It would have a maximum lot coverage of 50%, a minimum open space of 25%. Landscaping would be required per our code, but we also asked them to bulk up their landscaping a little bit, which they did and have provided as one of the exhibits. They will not be allowed to have any invasive or exotic plants on the property. A lighting plan will be required. They'll be required to meet our parking requirements, which is 1 space per 300 square feet of gross floor area. And we will require that the developer comply with all local, state, and federal water management requirements. We've talked a little bit about the easement in the past, and the applicant has agreed to a 30-foot easement instead of a 24-foot easement. They've also agreed to plat the entire parcel that it was broken out from and subdivided from. So this is going to change when we get to second reading. They went ahead and provided a rendering, which shows the proposed architectural standards. And this intensity analysis basically makes the point that they would be allowed to have less square footage, approximately 22,607 square feet, as a result of this zoning change. So they're requesting something less intense that would be allowed per the county zoning that was originally there. In terms of public facilities and services, potable water will be extended to the site. Sanitary sewer and septic, the applicant is proposing to use septic. The solid waste will be provided by a city-approved refuse collector. Access will be limited to Lake Henry Drive, so no access from US 27. Obviously, we don't have to talk to the schools about this one because there's no students generated from this development. And it is very close to meeting the recreation and open space requirements that would usually be required in the C1 district, which is our highway commercial district. So in C1, it's usually 30%, they're proposing 25. We do have a trails and paths plan in the town. In this particular parcel, because it's located on an arterial, does not require a multi-use path. I think that's something we should revisit one day when we go over our land development regulations. But a 5-foot sidewalk is proposed along US 27 and on Lake Henry Drive. There were no substantial comments from any other departments or agencies. The only comment was Highlands County Engineering Department, which states they will have to go through the development review process and there could be additional requirements identified at that time. The LPA made a recommendation and they recommended to approve with some changes. So the applicant has been working to work through the changes that were requested by the LPA. They provided some responses, which were included as part of the packet. And at our last town council meeting on August 14th, the town council voted to table the items until September, but we took a little bit more time to deliberate to allow for further discussion, as I said earlier, between the town attorney and applicant. The motion options are available on the screen. I'm available for any questions. The applicant and the agent are here to answer any questions, and I'll turn it back over to our mayor.
Okay.
I have a question. How big is the actual store? The store is obviously not 37,000 square feet.
10,640 square feet, if I know that off the top of my head.
Which is half what it could be. It's allowable up to 22,000, which is a reduction.
10,000 how many?
10,640 square feet. Let me get back to my intensity analysis.
I mean, I guess I was just doing the calculation on parking places. I want to make sure I had that about right. So they'd have to do 35, 36 parking places.
I think it's 33.
Okay.
Yeah, 33 or 35, and they have it. So they went from being able to have 60,000 square feet to now they can have 37,379 square feet.
So is that square foot, that's the total impervious surface, or?
That's just the building. No, so not, So we know, just for anyone who might not know, we have impervious, impervious. Impervious means anything that rain cannot penetrate through. Pervious means rain can penetrate through that. So impervious would include the parking lot. In this case, when we're talking about intensity, we're only talking really about the maximum lot coverage, because it's only one story. It's really called floor area ratio, but it's a calculation of the square footage of the building compared to the land.
No, I'm good. I guess I wanted to make sure. I don't even know this, I'm not going to press it because I don't think it's determinative to the decision we make. And I'm happy to move this forward. I appreciate their legal counsel's willingness several meetings ago to say, hey, let's get this right. And it's my understanding that Dana, you and Bert are still in conversation with them, that not everything is completely tied down yet. There's still conversation about how big the right-of-ways need to be, and, you know, is this a shared parking lot driveway, or is it gonna be right-of-way? So, I mean, I think if we move this forward, I just want to make sure everyone understands that it's just to move the process forward. It's not saying, yeah, we're good with where we are now. We still haven't settled the question, you know, about utility coverage, those kinds of things. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. And is it, Dana and Bert, is it your all's recommendation we move this forward on first reading for the purposes of moving the process forward?
That is my recommendation.
That is my recommendation.
Okay.
It's my understanding, well, we're still discussing things like a plat. I think the applicant has been in discussions with the folks they bought from, so we'll plat the entire parcel. That will make provision for the backage road on the entire parcel, which is, as I've explained, important to us. We've got to get past the county engineer on some platting requirements, but we've had good discussions, and it preserves for later the issue of sewer. Okay. Council is here if you'd like to address anything.
I guess what I wanted to make sure is, at least for Ms. Hayes, Mr. Wilson, and I, and the mayor's sake, is that if we move this forward on first reading, it won't come back to us on second reading until staff has, at least can come back and say, this is where we are on the various issues for a vote. Is that accurate?
Yes, and it may be that we disagree, or that we
Right.
come back with issues that said, this issue is preserved uniquely for your decision. But yes, we've been making good progress.
And I will say, just to clarify that, if the applicant pushes the issue and says, no, I really want to come back and I don't have this resolved, we will let them, but my recommendation would then change.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? Okay, I'll give it to
Well,
council.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-03, if I got that correctly on first reading.
Okay, we got a motion to second. Any other comments from the podium? All right, hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes?
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
All right, we now go to Resolution 2023-14, a resolution of the Town of Lake Placid, Florida, approving public event signs as requested by the Lake Placid Garden Club, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I don't know if I introduced myself last time. Dana Riddell, Town Planner for the record. As part of the packet, I went ahead and prepared a little bit of a staff analysis, but what we have before us today is an application from the Lake Placid Garden Club. They're requesting that on Saturday, December 2nd, which is the date of their event, to erect 4 signs and take them back down that same day. Each sign will be under 3 square feet. There is a person that is responsible for removing the signs. And they provided images of the signs as well, but I just want to go ahead and discuss for a moment. So I'm going to delve into a little bit more about the public event permits, public event sign permits, and you might have noted in my staff report that public event sign permits have very little criteria for approval. It's about 2 or 3 sentences, and it basically says if the sign is directional in nature, an event sign, and this particular sign does have an arrow on it, so we know it's directional, then it could qualify as a public event sign. It also says in our code that public event signs can be approved by town council, which is why we're here before you today, when they're in the right-of-way. So in this particular case, and in most cases when it comes to public event permits, since I've come on board, I've worked with most of the public who've called, and I've been able to get them to either relocate their signs on private property or come into compliance in different ways. I've been able to work with them to find ways to make it happen. So in this case, Ms. Denning came in and she was concerned, we both had concerns about whether or not FDOT would allow this particular sign on 27. So this sign will be on Mid-Florida's property. She got permission from them. And again, approval of this is not indication that we're allowing her to do something on Mid-Florida's property. They have to give her permission for that, but we are, if we approve it, saying that the sign could go there. And these other 3 signs are located on Interlake Boulevard in our right-of-way. So that's why we have this request before us tonight, because the signs will actually be located in the right-of-way. And I wanted to bring some questions before you from my staff report. So this is what I was mentioning when I said we had very little criteria. It says, public events not advertising any single business may be issued directional signs, parking signs, and event signs. An event sign plan showing all signs to be used shall be submitted to the chief of police, who has designated this authority to me, for approval and permitting. And additional requirements may be established by town council resolution or by the permit process. So that's why we're here today. And I think some relevant questions to ask when approving these types of signs are, is the purpose of the sign for a public event? Does the sign advertise a single business? Is the sign directional, parking, or an event sign? And when will the signs be erected and removed in relation to the event? Should have been a question mark there. That about summarizes the request. I'll turn it back over to our mayor, and I'm here for any questions. I believe Ms. Denning is also here.
Turn it over to council.
Mr. Mayor, this particular application seems to be pretty straightforward, short-term, limited number of signs. When we get to the next one, I'll probably have some comments about how we're gonna have to deal with stuff like that longer term, but I'll move approval of the resolution for the Lake Placid Garden Club signs.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other comment from the podium?
I just have one question. So, Dana, you said the Chief Schneider, he's basically designated this to you. Do you, very good, Chief. Number 2, do you, as his designee, theoretically or by code, have the ability to approve or deny this without council consideration, and we are strictly the appeals board?
In the code, it's hard, because in the code, it says that signs in the right-of-way are prohibited.
Okay.
So I don't feel comfortable signing off on those
Okay.
permits.
Okay, well, I think we're about to have a broader conversation in a minute about that. I just wondered where we were going with that. Thank you, sir.
I had the same conversation with her, and I understand where she's coming from, but I think we need to delve into this a little further, just to see how far we want her to go with it.
Well, and I'm appreciative, I will say, to the folks at the Garden Club and the Smoke Foundation folks. In the past, sometimes people have just stuck stuff up. At least people are going through the process, making application, we have conversations, so I think we're gonna probably, like a lot of things, have to do some more work on the code or whatever, but this one day, 4 signs, makes it easy for me in support of my motion.
Okay. If there's no more comments, we'll take it to the audience. Okay. I hear nothing, so public counsel, please.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes?
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, now we go to the next one. This is the Mason G. Smoke Foundation public event sign. A resolution of the Town of Lake Placid, Florida, approving public event signs as requested by the Mason G. Smoke Foundation, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you.
And this one's kind of the same, but it's different, so.
Exactly the same but different. So in the case of this event, the requester, the organization is the Mason G. Smoke Foundation, and they're requesting to put up signs starting on October 15th and remove them on October 21st. The event will be on the 21st, so that's the last date of the dates that they have requested to display the sign. They've requested 55 signs, and after speaking with Dina, the applicant, earlier today, I realized there's actually 15 more signs that we will add to this request, and she brought examples, and we can add them to the resolution if they are approved. This is an example of the actual sign. They are under 3 square feet. It says 5K and Family Fun Day, and it states the location of it and provides some information about the foundation. On our event permit, our site plan, the red dots indicate the locations of the proposed signage. And it's hard to see here because I have it turned, but this is 27 here, if anyone's a little lost. We have 27, we're coming down Heartland a little bit down Interlake, on Main, and around Devane, and further down Interlake. So that is our request. I pose the same questions for your consideration when it comes to reviewing these permits, which are, is the purpose of the sign for a public event? Does the sign advertise a single business? Is the sign directional, parking, or an event sign? And when will the signs be erected and removed in relation to the event? With that, I turn it back over to our mayor.
I'll give it to council.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, this is, I get, in a moment, I'm going to make a motion, just so I'll let everyone know up front where I'm going to go. I'll make a motion to approve because I believe that we need to do some more, have staff do some more work long-term on how we are going to handle situations like this. I believe it's a public event. I believe that it's informational in nature. Obviously, this goes back to the example would be many years ago, the athletic boosters said, can we put up some football tonight signs? And it went from being 5 or 6 of them to,
Hundreds of them.
I don't know how many, but a bunch,
Yeah.
And this one, there's a request to do it for a week. And I know that we have to be longer term, very deliberate in how we handle this because whatever we do, whether it's for the Garden Club or the Smoke Foundation. We would also have to do for the KKK or, any organization that we found perhaps personally disturbing, So, part of my motion will probably be in the approvals that we direct staff to come back with a more exacting set of guidelines in the future about how we're going to handle this. And I don't know if we want to have some of that conversation or not, but.
I probably need to comment.
Yes.
I see a member of the Smoke Foundation present in the audience. Would you join us at the microphone? Whoever wants to speak.
Or both of you.
Is this a fundraiser?
Yes, it is a fundraiser, but the fundraising part has already been done, and the event itself is free to the community. And we're gonna have about 25 or so games that are 100% free for kids and families, just to do a give back. We had moved the event to Venus during COVID, and we came back to Lake Placid because it's an event that allows families and children in Lake Placid to gather together and just have a very wholesome, fun-filled day together. So that's why we really feel like it's a give back in that part. We've got our sponsorships to offset all the costs so that we can do it for free for the kids.
And clearly, it's the type of event and organization that makes Lake Placid special that I'm sure everyone on this podium likes to see and would want to see. The U.S. Supreme Court, though, has said that we have to treat all sign applicants roughly equivalent. So people that want to play bingo have to get the same treatment. I would therefore ask that you consider, I noticed Dana had recommended fewer signs. I join that recommendation simply because we've got to look other people in the eye. Would you want us, this council, to vote for that many bingo signs?
That's not my say. I guess.
Result of your ask.
Right. We apologize that we were late in coming to Dana for this. I know that this has changed. We thought we simply walked in just this past week and said, "Hi, Chief of Police, can we put out our signs?" And we were told yes, because that's been done for 12 years. And we haven't been in town for the past 3 years, so we were not aware that there was a new sign permitting process. So we've been trying to go through all of those steps this past couple of weeks to make that happen. So we didn't have all of the information up front.
I don't think anyone is faulting you for that.
Okay.
I think Ray made the point of you've at least come forward, thank you. But that still begs the question, you realize the Pandora's box you're asking the council to open. Now, the other factor is the number of days you want the signs left up. I mean, that feels to me like that is strictly promotional or advertising for the event.
Right, we just want as many kids to know, right, we want as many kids to know that the event is gonna happen on the town circle as possible.
Is no different from any other
Right,
event that would be publicized to make the public aware.
right,
So you're asking the council to again accept, because I know it's a good family-oriented thing.
for the kids.
For the kids, it's, you asked for the Boy Scout resolution, and how can you
Right.
say no, but you've got to do the same for the bingo club?
Right, so do you have something that sets forth, because that was part of my challenge in doing the application, was when I went to the website, the only sign permit that I could find on the town website was for erecting a sign at my business. So I made a phone call and Dana emailed me the permit that we were sent, and she asked me to fill it out. We weren't given any guidelines on number of signs. We were strictly going by what we've done 12 years prior to 2020. And so that's where our ask comes from. We're certainly willing to work with the town on whatever you need us to do. But I would say that the process itself probably needs to be looked at pretty deeply, because we were asked to submit a sign permit and a site plan, and I had no guidance on the site plan. I submitted the sign permit. She gave me very good guidance on the site plan. I submitted that, and then I got another email asking me to fill out an affidavit. And so the communication of the expectations on the sign permit application aren't real clear in the onset of trying to do it, and there were certainly no guidelines for us as to, we would like for you to limit the number of days, we would like for you to limit the number of signs. We were going off of what we had done for 12 years prior to 2020.
Because apparently heads have been turned in the past years, and the code, generally speaking, prevents or prohibits off-premises signs, so you get one on your site, period.
Right.
And then you get directional signs, which I agree with Dana, we need to amend the code and put those in the right-of-way for directional purposes as opposed to advertising purposes. Off-premises for advertising are generally not prohibited. That's the reason they're not explained in the code.
Okay,
So I'm agreeing with Dana, we could do a better job of clarifying. This code was written right after the U.S. Supreme Court came out with its landmark case of goose gander. How we treat the Smoke Foundation is the same way we have to treat folks that, we've had people in here saying, no, my God, don't let them do that. Period.
right.
I do hope you understand that.
We do,
And I'm not
yes.
comparing the Smoke Foundation to the bingo club either. That's, don't walk out of here thinking,
Yeah,
well,
don't-
so be said that.
Don't pick on the bingo people.
Well, I shouldn't. They have a right to play bingo.
Right.
So my recommendation, I join Dana's, and I would ask that you consider less time and fewer signs. Not my job to say. 3 other people, 4 other people get to make that decision.
Well, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about it and looking at it. And I agree that the process was very cumbersome for doing the signs, so a lot more clarification for the person requesting the permit, as well as probably for Dana to try and go through it and have easier clarification on what she can approve and not approve.
It's not cumbersome. It doesn't allow you to do what you want to do.
Right, but the application to even find out that was not clear to us. Right. You're telling me that for the first time is the first time we've heard that. We didn't get that anywhere else. There was nothing sent to us that said that this is against all the ordinances. She asked me to come ask,
Town code.
right, so, but she asked me to come because she said that it could be approved by the town council as an exemption to put them in the right-of-way, because she couldn't approve that.
I think I've said quite enough, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Council can do what they,
Yeah, when this first came across to me, I thought it was a no-brainer, because, you know, we've supported you guys from day one, and we appreciate all you do. But then when I saw 55 signs for 6 days, I told Dana, I said, this is going to be an interesting meeting. So we'll see what council comes up with. I mean, we're going to support you.
Right.
But we will, I just want to see what council, how they want to handle this.
Well, now you're saying it's not 55 signs, it's 70 signs.
Well, the morning of, we would put up these were the things that I thought that the chief of police, because they are directing the people through our race and closing the roads, I thought that this was part of that process that I had discussed with the chief. But Dana told me today that no, that these should have been on the application as well. So these would just go up the morning of the race for about 2 hours.
Of the directional signs
The
for the actual
directional.
5K.
And I will tell you, in years past, they have been very good about getting their signs up right away. So that's one thing I want to say to the community, and that we really appreciate that respect on this whole thing.
And that is our plan again. We plan to have somebody following at the very end of the race, taking these signs back up, and as soon as the event's over at noon, we would take up any signs that we're allowed to put out throughout the community as well.
Tina, how many directional signs do you, 15?
15,
Okay.
So
and they're
55 and
strictly
50, yeah,
arrows.
that's a total of 70 signs.
Excuse me, if town council approves, if there is I know there's a motion on right now to approve.
Well, I haven't made it yet, I just said I was going
Oh,
to.
okay, good, you haven't done it yet. Okay, so with that being said, we would have to approve with changes if we're going to allow all 70. So just keep that in mind, approve with changes to allow 55 event signs and 15 directional signs to be, and we could say 15 directional signs to be determined by the applicant on the day of the event.
And let's, if I might, Mr. Mayor, let's be clear, whatever we potentially approve, forget the directional signs now.
Okay.
If we approve the regular promotional signs, all we will be approving is the number of signs that can be placed in the town of Lake Placid right away. If they have signs that they can place outside of the right of way, are they able to do that, or is that also, that's against the law, the code? Okay.
They're all off premises, yeah.
And so I guess my question then, Mr. Harris, should be, if someone was gonna make a motion, should it be for the total number of signs since they are all off-premises signs?
Well, your code doesn't allow off-premises signs other than directional signs. So if you want to do something different than is provided for in your code, then I don't think there's a limit. I mean, you're going beyond the code, so.
Obviously, anything they put out outside the town limits of Lake Placid is not our concern or our problem.
I'm sorry, if I could chime in. This is my first time getting to see this sign and the size of this sign. Off-premise signs under 2 square feet are exempt in our code, and directional signs on private property under 2 square feet are also exempt from our code.
Not completely, I don't believe that.
Okay.
Well, imagine what you're saying, that's every snipe sign in the town.
The snipe signs, like the size that they were showing earlier, are 3 square feet.
I'm saying directional signs are fine. I'm not arguing with that.
But I'm saying they would not, you're saying that those same signs would be allowed all over town, and it's a bigger discussion that we'd have to
Yeah, I
have.
think it is. I'm agreeing we need to review. The Supreme Court case came down years ago. I'm sure the law has developed further, and I would like the ability to review.
It looks like our LPH here has the solution to all this. Let's let him solve this.
I knew he wasn't walking up just to look pretty, so here we go.
Dustin Woods, for the record, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning for Lake Placid. I was just going to ask if it would benefit our town council if the LPA wrestle with staff through potentially some nuance to recommend to you guys to at least have something to work with to make a decision. It seems like, as touchy as this situation be, I'd hate to see you guys get bogged down with it. Let us play with it, figure out potentially how to make it work for agencies that we all love and support and are good for the community, but maybe set up some bumpers and boundaries for some of the ones we're concerned about. And
that's exactly what you can't do.
we can't. There's no room for nuance in the code for signage. It has to be across the board.
Or the way they're treated, though.
What if we had it,
Protection, due process argument. The United States Supreme Court has been very clear. If you allow her sign, you get to allow the drag queen sign.
even if we set the bar really low,
Pardon me?
even if we set the code bar really low and then allow for special exceptions, is that a possibility?
You're gonna dig yourself a hole.
You're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
deeper and deeper.
Okay, well, I just figured I'd jump into the good fight with you.
My
But I hear you, Bert.
suggestion to the council was, He's probably certifiably insane based on what he just volunteered for. And accept his offer and we'll.
The chairman, I know he's willing to take on some tough stuff.
Yeah,
so-
well, see, they moved us out of town and we haven't had this problem. Now they brought it back, so this is all your fault.
Well,
Trust me, I have tried every nuance I can to. And I'm happy to take another look at it. They're asking to just do something totally prohibited.
Yeah.
And I love them, and I don't have a good answer, other than, what people had done in the past was a directional sign with the name of the entity on it. And you've chosen to now to separate those for promotion versus direction.
We're using the signs that we have, so the sign that she had in her presentation is what we used for the first 12 years. But I guess there wasn't a code against it then, or the code wasn't enforced.
That was before the Supreme Court ruling.
So we didn't have new signs made. We're trying to cut costs and use the signs we already had made.
I understand.
So, yeah, we didn't choose to do new ones.
I
There,
didn't throw a fit and say council has to say no. I'm simply alerting council.
right.
To the exposure of, you may hear other people coming in with similar requests. The Athletic Association for fundraisers, the Women's Club, all good people. But once you let one, Reverend, it was a church that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, by the way. They'll call you out on it.
So what if we reduce the signs to less than 20, what does that do to you? Does that really put a crimp in?
We can do that. If that helps you be able to make a better decision, we can work with that.
But I don't think the number of the signs is the problem, because one is too many.
Yeah, it kind of is to me, because
Yeah.
I can visualize 55 signs.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just a lot of signs that people quit looking at.
But then again, I can remember in my head when we did this for the football team and when we've done it for others. So it's a dilemma that I think we definitely need to work on, but we've got to make a decision for these folks now.
When is the event coming up?
October 21st. That's what I said. I didn't know that there was prohibited things to it that was going to require anything, or I would have submitted. I came and you guys were great and waived our fees back in April. But in my planning notes from my predecessor, it said this one was just easy going. You walk into the chief of police, he says, yes, you put your signs out. So there was just change since the last time we made this request. So sorry for not giving you guys more time to hash it out.
so Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-15 and allow the Mason G. Smoke Foundation to place up to 30 off-premises signs for a period of up to 5 days, ending no later than 5 p.m. on October 21st.
Can we say 5 consecutive days?
I'm sorry, what?
Can we say 5 consecutive days? I know.
Yes,
they've
I'm
already-
sorry, 5 consecutive days, ending no later than 5 p.m. on October 21st.
Second.
And in support of my motion, I mean, I think we, you know, I know we all kind of hate doing it, but we're gonna have to figure out, do we need to loosen this? Do we need to tighten it? Do we need to, within the confines of the law, how do we do this? Do we, you know, limit it if we can to charitable things? Mr. Harris may ultimately tell us, no, we can't, you know. And then we, you know, I'm not going against, Dana, what you and the chief have done, but we're trying to move this thing forward in the short term.
And we appreciate you following the code to the letter.
Thank you, absolutely. It's a living document. We got to keep working with it every time something arises, that just really doesn't make sense. We got to keep going at it. Let me just ask one question. I think I'm getting the understanding that moving forward, when I go to change land development regulations and I work with the local planning agency on this particular item, is town council in favor of allowing signs in the right-of-way in any capacity? It sounds like to some capacity, we're willing to consider it. Does that sound right? Or is town council leaning more toward, I just really don't want signs in the right-of-way at all?
I mean, what I just heard Mr. Harris say was, for me, I guess I perceived we were talking about the town right away, and if I understood his answer, he said, no, off-premise means off-premise, and that means that you can't place these signs on private property that does not belong to the sign placer. Is that accurate, Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where it gets, I mean, so the only exemptions currently in code to that are real estate signs, political signs, those types of things, correct?
Political signs, don't know the real estate because that is tied to the property. They're allowed to
Okay,
be posted
right.
on the property for sale.
Okay. So the only real exemption to this is political signs.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's even proper, but that's what.
Okay.
we've done in the past.
It's been, yeah, just historically how we've handled it, but,
I think we're all in agreement, we need to workshop this
Yeah.
and
okay. All right, thought I'd poke that
I
bear.
hope Mr. Woods will solve
If I
it
may,
for us.
Mark Schneider, Chief of Police. Just to make a recommendation here, I see that council's wrestling with this. It does say in there that the Chief of Police is allowed to approve these decisions. With latitude from the council, I would recommend this time putting it back in my court, allowing me to make approval or disapproval, while the council continues this discussion to actually nail down exactly what they want, instead of forcing the council to make a decision they're going to be held to for a long period of time at this point.
It's a very kind offer, just as kind as the chairman of the zoning board. But I don't think you have the authority to override town code when you make the decision.
I would say I would go with it if it does give me the ability to authorize these types of sign in the code.
I don't know that it does. To answer that question, I'd have to go read, but I do not recall something that said you have the ability to override the code. You have the ability to put directional signs according to a plan approved by you, is all I recall. These are not directional. They are.
I'm aware, that's why I'm saying it may just be easier at this time until we can actually nail down exactly
they
what can
kind of
and
are,
can't
because
be.
they say where it is, that's directional, it's telling you where it is at Devane Park, so they are technically directional.
I think directional has to have an arrow.
That's what I was thinking. That's what we've seen.
It has to have an arrow.
Well, if it's telling you where the event is, that's directional in my opinion.
What if they put arrows on all 55 signs?
No. That's a fair point.
Staple the sign.
Yeah, just staple an arrow to all 55
Got a
signs.
hot glue gun, I got a hot glue.
No, it's,
I have a question for you, though. Right, what, your proposal, however many signs, you said 30 signs, does that include the 15 directional?
no, because the 15 directional are.
I'm sorry, Rice, and it says, you may be right, I may not have specified that, and my intent was that there would be, we would allow up to 30 of what I'm gonna call the promotional signs for 5 consecutive days, and then the placement of the up to 15 directional signs on the day of the event, if I wasn't clear.
Okay.
And while I appreciate the chief's offer to make life simpler for us, I really appreciate that. I think we probably need to take ownership of this and acknowledge that as in all the sign code, we need to have some more conversation. We need to make some hard decisions, then publicly do it. And Dana, to answer your question, I'm not sure where I am because I am very supportive of a very stringent sign code for the town of Lake Placid. And so I don't really want to start departing from that. I also understand, and let me say this, I mean, as a small town, we want to maintain the flavor that makes a small town, and whether it's allowing people to put up football tonight or these kinds of things, I think we need to figure out how to do that. But I think we need to be really clear with the public, as Mr. Harris has tried to do repeatedly, that if we put that into the code, then other people are going to make application, and the community has to understand that if the Florida Nazi Party wants to have a rally here and they make application and follow the code, then we're going to have to play by the same set of rules for them.
Mr. Royce, so Mr. Kukas and I have talked. If it's really backing you guys into a corner, as Mr. Harris said, we don't have to put the signs out in advance. We can just put our directional signs up the morning, because we don't want to put you guys, we don't back you guys into a corner to have to make a decision that could cause ill things to happen in Lake Placid in the future.
Well, I guess in my mind, we are potentially going to grant an exception, and then we are going to figure this out in the coming months. And as I said before the garden club deal, I am appreciative that they and you all, that's probably improper English, but that you all took the time and effort to come in, make the application, document what you want to do, and have not just nailed stuff to telephone poles and stuck signs in the ground. So I'm thankful and appreciate that you all have gone through the process.
Thank you.
So my motion stands. As amended, Ms. Hayes, to say up to 30 of the promotional signs for 5 consecutive days, ending at 5 p.m. on the 21st of October, and then up to 15 directional signs on the day of the event.
And I amend my second.
Okay.
To the amended
All
motion.
right, we have a motion second. Any other comments from the podium? I want to ask a question. Is the town going to be required to provide anything for you?
For the signs, or,
Police or
yes, but we've already come.
utilities or?
We've already come before the council in April and made all of those requests.
Okay.
And they were.
I wasn't
gratefully
sure if that
approved.
was done or not.
Yes,
So
sir.
I was going to recommend it if it wasn't, but.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I knew about that part in advance. I just didn't know about this part.
So we're good in that respect. Okay.
I'm just thankful they haven't asked me to be in their dunk tank again. I did that a couple of times, so thank God that's gone past.
I think that's probably reserved for the town attorney.
Town planner too.
Okay, hearing nothing from the podium, how about the audience? Any comments from the audience? Now, I'm going to bring it back, but I appreciate your last comments, but actually you bringing this forward is probably going to be a plus, because it's going to force us to make some changes that we probably knew was coming, but we just haven't had to deal with it yet. So, in that respect, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, poll the council, please.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Okay, next is 6D1, holiday, sanitation holiday schedule, and town meeting dates.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, unless you're going to say something first. As I read this, have we committed to having 12 holidays?
That's in our policy. The code or policy? I was looking for the-
Have we committed, from the planning gallery, have we committed to having at least 12 holidays?
Yes, nothing's been changed, it's already.
Okay.
You would have to.
I note the county has 11, and so now there's 12 with a floating holiday.
Yeah, that used to be, you changed that from Good Friday, I think, moved to the floating holiday.
And I want to make sure, I think I understand this, but basically, we're still on these Fridays that we're that we theoretically can make holidays, we're still going to pick up trash. It's just going to cost us more to do so because we'll be paying overtime or holiday pay to the folks that are working in the sanitation department that day. Is that the way it works?
That's correct, except for the day before Thanksgiving. Some of the days move, but other days like Veterans Day, then we still do pickup. So on those days, we have overtime. Some days we shift it. Christmas Day, we don't pick up, we'll pick up on the day after or before.
I just wanted to ask, since I knew the county had 11 days, and I saw we were adding one, I guess that's a reason for people to come work for us instead of the county then.
We keep trying to get applicants.
Okay, I'm not gonna,
We're not adding any. This is the same that has been in place, I don't know how many years, at least the year and a half I've been here.
I am just, now this is just a pure curiosity question. If an employee wanted to, for instance, take off, there was one day that struck me in particular. If someone wanted to take off Tuesday, January 2nd instead of Friday, December 29th, do the employees have the ability to move those, or are these the days we're going to be doing business and these other days we aren't?
Yeah, one garbage person showing up isn't going to do any good, or one person in the office when city hall's closed, town hall's closed, doesn't do us any good, so they don't get to move the holidays.
Okay, thank you.
So are you looking for a motion for this?
Yes, it has to be approved by council every year.
I'll make a motion that the holiday schedule as presented for October 1st, 2023 till September 30th, 2024 to be approved.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the podium? Okay, hearing none, we'll take it to the audience. Seeing none, bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Okay. Same thing, just the schedule of town meetings.
That was all one motion, so.
It was all one motion? I thought you had them separated.
No, there's just.
Okay. All right. All right, well then, the last thing I have on my agenda is 62 vehicle purchase request.
And I'll address this just quickly. In the past, we have, at least the last 2 years, we've gone on state bid, particularly with Ford Motor Company. The one 2 years ago took us 16 months to get the vehicle, and this last one took us 11 months to get the vehicle. So what I advised Alan to do is go find vehicles that were actually available, that we weren't going to have to go on state bid, and we would put them out for bid. So we used BidNet, which is one of the government bidding processes. We went out to bid for 2 Toyota Tacomas. They are not the base model, but they're also not a high-end model, but they're not, so we went out to bid. We got one bid from Sebring Toyota, and that we can have within a couple of weeks instead of a year. And let's see where the total bid price is. But anyway, I would recommend that we approve those low bids for Sebring Toyota. And Alan's not here. That's under the budgeted amount that was requested. Yes, he has the money in his budget. Okay.
So I'm going to be supportive of this, but I'm just curious. The advantage of the state bid versus calling Sebring Toyota or Allen J Fleet Sales or whoever, I mean, what is the advantage or disadvantage?
The typical advantage is it relieves us from having to go out to bid. They've already negotiated prices. It's typically a low price because it's a state contract. Allen J actually happens to have the state contract for Ford, so that's who we've been going through. They won the state contract through Ford. And so it's typically a very good price, not always the lowest price, but it's typically a very good price. And you go in, you select the truck, all the bidding's been done. The state has done it for us, instead of us going through the process and an issue of trying to find those vehicles. With the current delays and the problem with getting vehicles, it now has become a long-term, because when they order off a state bid, it has to be that low-base truck, which is not typically what they have sitting on their lot. So Allen J will have, example of the F-550 sitting back there, they may have 4 F-550s sitting on their lot, but they're not the base model that we are getting. They already have some upgrades. They may have power locks, or they may have some things that are not necessarily on the state bid. And so they're a higher end truck, so we have to go through the state process. They order those from Ford, and it goes through Ford's production process. And Ford's production process is a nightmare at the moment. So which is why the F-550 that I ordered last October 1st, that was going to be to us in January and produced in January, we got last week. It's very difficult to plan on that. So it's an option. It relieves some of our work if we're using the state bid process, and but we're not going to get the vehicles. So
I guess my point would be, and I'm fine, we need to do this to move forward, but if we are in fact, as it seems going to be, for instance, ordering a new police vehicle, one a year, I mean, do we need to be thinking about how we're ordering stuff that we really aren't expecting to get for 12 months in order to save? I guess, is there enough savings for us to start thinking, forget this particular issue, but is there enough savings on the state bid that we should be talking about ordering now vehicles we're going to get in 2025? Or is there really not, in the grand scheme of things, thousands of dollars of savings that if we can't get them under state bid, that we just do this?
I think that's a case by case.
Okay.
I think the chief's ordering Dodges, because Dodges can actually he can order those and get them in this year, as opposed to the Fords and the Chevys. You can't order a Ford police vehicle or a Chevy police vehicle and get it in this year. So he's ordering Dodges.
What is that, does Dodge provide the same type of vehicle, or are there issues with that, with the Dodge?
No, they're all police-rated, pursuit-rated vehicles. The only difference is the actual manufacturer. Right now, Ford is backed up 15 months, and Chevy is approximately 12 months to receive vehicles. We're hoping to have the Dodges before the first of the year.
I don't mean to be crass or ignorant or whatever, but
No, you're not turned on, I don't think, are you?
that's probably a good idea, just don't turn it on, but, at least for this part. But I know in the sheriff's office, I heard the guys complaining a lot of times about certain vehicles that they just couldn't fit in. I mean, I've never had a vehicle I couldn't fit in. I've had vehicles they've asked me to drive where seriously I could not reach the pedals. But can a normal-sized person fit in the Dodge as comfortably as in the Ford?
Absolutely. They are the Dodge Durango SUV.
Okay.
The actual size is between the Ford Police Interceptor and the Chevy Tahoe, the Chevy being larger and the Police Interceptor being smaller.
Okay.
So we should not have a problem with officers or people fitting in the vehicles.
Okay.
The only issues that I have seen that's come up is possibly with maintenance schedules where they've had people who do not take into account idle time hours when they're actually doing their oil changes on these vehicles. We actually do that at the police department. We take into account not only driving miles, but idle hours as well.
Okay.
The old Sport Track is the particular vehicle you're thinking about, I
Is it?
believe.
Okay.
The Sport Track had a terrible front seat to the steering wheel space, and it was a problem for the city of Clewiston's police department.
I couldn't quite get my head around that, but they said it loud enough where I heard it.
So what do you need, Mr. McCarthy? Yes, just to, I guess I should look at the
Approve the purchase of two.
Approve the purchase of the two vehicles? To waive the normal process and approve the purchase of
We
the two?
still bid, so it's still fine. You're not waiving a process. We still went through the council's
Okay.
process. It's just different than what we had done, so it still meets all of state requirements and the town's requirements. I just need you to approve purchase the two vehicles on low bid.
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase of two vehicles from Sebring Toyota on the low bid.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any other comments from the podium? Hearing none.
Wait, I have one here. What's the difference in the two vehicles? The MSP is different on the two vehicles. The one is 37.5 and the other is 30,
Yeah, because they're not, they're identical, they're not the same
49.
vehicles, because they didn't have two of the same that we could get.
okay.
So it's literally what's on their lot.
What's the difference?
And I do not know what the difference interior is. It's an interior finish that's difference between the two. They're Toyota SR5s
Okay.
with a towing package so that
So
we can drive those.
It's
So
really a non-point. It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter because that's
Okay.
what we can get.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, sir.
Take it to the audience. Bring it back, poll the council.
Councilmember Royce?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we have any comments from the audience? I'll bring it back to
Okay, we took
town
care
administrator.
we took care of half of my code enforcement discussion because it was on the sign resolutions and where we were going, so we just needed to get some direction on what we were doing and where those were at, and so we have some direction on that because you discussed that with the previous resolution. So the other item on mine, code enforcement discussion, I gave you a picture of a house that is in serious disrepair. They've accumulated fines that amount now to $395,000, which is a lot more than the lot or the house is worth, but I wanted to, in an abundance of caution, make sure the council was okay with me pursuing, foreclosure is not the right word, the attorney may know what the right word is, a demand letter and actually enforcing our lien on that property.
Foreclosure.
It's a foreclosure. So,
And collection any other way against the owner. And speaking of town code, I have always avoided, sorry, boss. I've always been very slow to look at demolishing buildings as taking of land that people can't necessarily afford to do better, or property, not land. But sometimes it's rental, and sometimes we have no choice, and we may need to strengthen our code on that as well. It's time.
Yeah.
so I don't need a motion, but I just need, if somebody has an issue with me taking it, then we'll leave it alone. But it is accumulating, it's not a livable structure, there's no power to this building, there is trash. It's not a great picture, I did it off my phone, but there is trash out the doors, in the doors.
Do people actually live there?
Don't think anybody, they're in and out of the place. I've been told that they stay at night somewhere else. But
Needles are in there, aren't they? Needles?
needles? Oh, there may be. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's I wouldn't want to live next to it, and it is rat infested, nasty place. And so something needed to be done, and I needed some direction. I just wanted to find out. If everybody has an issue with it, then the town attorney and I will get together and we'll figure out what we need to proceed, or the magistrate, or what the right order is. This is something I have not been involved in the past, other than I know it's been done in my previous employments. So, but again, I'm with the town attorney. You're not going to find me bringing very many of these to you, but I do want to, the ones that we have no other remedy for, we need to figure out what to do. So,
Well, if there's no objections, I'll just let them proceed. All
Proceed.
then we'll,
right,
all right, then
thank you.
we'll work on that, and other any other code issues that we run into, but it's so, we had been hopeful on the tower project, and I'll talk about that without mentioning any names or anything. The tower has some serious issues, so we will be pursuing the tower, trying to get them up to date on code enforcement. I'd heard internal comments in the past, we were afraid of owning a tower, and so we weren't gonna push too hard on some of those issues. It's a eyesore in the middle of our town, so in my opinion, we're gonna do our job, do our code enforcement, start enforcing, taking that through the magistrate process. We were unsuccessful in actually working way outside of our scope of work or our lane and trying to find somebody that might buy it. So, anyway.
I agree with the recommendation of the town administrator.
Okay.
Fully.
So, last thing on my list is the drawings that I put in front of you. These are the latest update on the police department. It's been flipped. It would face the way it's facing on the site out front here. They've added signage on the back that you can see from the highway. And if you want, you can see the chief has reviewed that. We reviewed it with the engineer and architect. And so if y'all want to review it, if you have any questions or you want to, something you need to have, feel you need to have changed, then we can discuss that or have a meeting on it. Either way you want to do it, otherwise they're gonna.
I have a question, if you don't mind. And maybe there's, I assume there's a very good reason. In regards to the vehicle processing room, let's just call it the garage. Why could we not have the garage door on the north end of the building versus on the front of the building?
It was originally facing that, strictly a cost-saving issue. We can move it back to that side of the building. You then have to build the driveway out and around to get vehicles into there, so.
It'd just be additional cost in the driveway, mainly, coming around. I think it'd look better aesthetically.
I mean, I would rather spend a few more dollars on some asphalt or concrete and do that than have a garage
Just
door
trying
on
to
the.
save as much as we possibly.
I appreciate that, and maybe it'd be good for you all to come back and say, this is what the cost would be, and maybe we should save that money, but if it's a couple $1,000s, I'd rather have it look a little sharper than having.
And I agree, when I looked at it, that's the first thing that caught my eye was that garage door right there. And that's the first thing people are gonna see when they pull up to it. So I'm in agreement with Ray. I think we should at least consider moving it over there, see what the additional cost would be. But while we're doing it, this would be the time to do it.
And that was my change, not the chief's, so I'll take full ownership of that as we were going through the plan. So I'm very cognizant of the dollars that we have to spend on this and where I think the price is going to come in at. I've done a fair number of construction projects, so chief was saying, yeah, we need that, we need this, and we need that. I was saying, no.
I appreciate, my other comment was, it was by happenstance, the sheriff came by my office today, and I had a copy of the older drawing, and I said, is there anything you noticed? And he had very good things to say about, I think Mr. Cool, when he was county administrator, had a lot to do with the current sheriff's office. And he said the main thing we've encountered is you can never have enough long-term property and evidence space. And I just want to make sure that you all are very comfortable, that you have enough. I'm not looking to make the building bigger, but make sure that within this, that evidence and property is enough here.
Yes,
Okay.
if you actually look at the building, it doubles our property and evidence from what we have now. Currently, the items we would put in wouldn't even fill the wall. We'll have plenty of room for property and evidence, and also, if you look at the drawings, the training room that we have on there can be moved and changed into property and evidence at a later date and time if we need more room at a later date and time. That's one of the perks of being up here at the Government Center. We still have use of these facilities here with the rooms for training as well.
And I will make a note, so we got these plans this morning, so they're kind of hot off the press. It shows a ceiling height of 10 foot, that's incorrect, so those ceilings are gonna be up to the roof deck, and they have to be block walls. So there's actually going to be 12 to 14 foot, so there's a lot of vertical storage that they don't have in their current 7.5 foot, 8 foot ceilings now, so they will have a lot of vertical storage. One of the things we had discussed was the sliding racks that open and close, and this does not include those. I said we can put those in at a later date if we need them. I think we're fine for now. They create a different set of issues once you get them. We had them at my warehouse at the school board, and so I'm very familiar with them. And so anyway, that's something that as they grow and if they run out of space, then you move to those type of sliding storage units to gain some extra space. But these will have, like I said, vertically, they're going to have quite a bit more space that they can do besides the base square footage.
And I take it, there's some things that we're leaving some room for if we grow a little bit, these additional meeting rooms, but I assume we could also, if in the future we wanted to, this building would work so that if other agencies needed to come to use one of these, what's now labeled additional office, they could come in, have access to the building to sit down, hook their computer to something, write a report, take a break, whatever,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yeah, we have one of them right now that would be dedicated for that.
okay. Okay, well, I would again encourage you that if it's not if it's not thousands and thousands of dollars, y'all explore if there's moving the garage door to the end of the building. And I think aesthetically, as I look at this, I mean, it's gonna be, the walls are gonna look sort of like the outside of this building with a metal roof, and so not exactly, but it'll follow kind of the same general architectural style of this building, correct?
And that was the intent. They're going to match the roof. It'll be the same standing seam roof. It will be that's the base brick along the wall, and trying to make it look like it's part of the project. You notice the windows are up high. It's a police station, so that's intentional for drive-bys or anything like that might happen. So there's not a lot of big windows that you see, and that's intentional. And there's some very unique things that have to go on in a police department, and those are all built into the system and what's happening. It's a critical facility, so.
I see where you, if I might, I see, placement of air conditioners and all that. Do you know yet, obviously this building, I am told, will have to have its own independent generator and all that. Do we know exactly where that's going to go, where the main power box or any of those kinds of things are going to
We
be?
haven't got to that point on site, and part of that's going to be a little bit driven by Duke, but I don't think that, we'll try and put everything, keep it on the north end, so it's out of sight. That's the intention. And so we had them shift, they had both air conditioners on the one end. Logistics-wise, getting all the duct and moving that stuff. We still have one air conditioner on the south end that you'll see, the other one's on the north end, so it's kind of out of sight. So we try to make that as least obtrusive as possible.
Again, without getting fancy from an aesthetic standpoint, if, where we have generators, main power panels, if we can put them on the north end of the building and have vegetation or walls or something so that maybe it's good to have maybe you want a wall to keep people from getting access to those kinds of things. But I just have you encourage that we pay some attention to the aesthetics of the building in a simple form,
Yeah, and we have had a meeting with the landscape architect for this site, and his recommendations so that we can start working on the landscaping and bringing our site up to code. We had the surveyor survey all of the existing vegetation, trees and stuff, so we can see where we're deficient and come back with a recommendation of how we can start moving forward to bringing this site back up to the rest of our site, back up to code. So,
needs to be done.
I'm very adamant that unless you exempt it in the code, which I don't think we exempted ourselves in the code anywhere, that we treat ourselves like we treat all of our residents. So we will start working on the plan on getting this site up to the current code on landscaping requirements.
And we are how far from going to bid?
They have not started this is a floor plan, not an architectural plan. They still got to do all the plans, which is 20, 30 pages. I'd probably say
Then we got to go through the permitting.
Oh, yeah.
5 to 6 months before we'll be
Yeah.
I'm
ready to bid.
I'm just looking for a time frame. That's all.
And depending what happens and whether they're included, we did a $800,000 direct legislative request for this. So if it gets included in the budget, then we may postpone any construction till July 1st, so that we know whether the governor has included that in his budget or not. So I'm basically looking for a July 1st start date, so that we'll know. If it doesn't get included, we'll know that early on in the budget. If it doesn't make it through that part of the process, but if it does, then we're gonna shoot for a July 1st, which gives us plenty of time on our ARPA funds to get the building done and still meet our deadline. So that's the kind of,
Yeah, I'm concerned about the
Back end
ARPA
of it.
funds, but as long as you're good with it,
yep,
okay.
yes. I'm anticipating close to a year construction, and we'll still be okay. And that is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'm glad we moved out here instead of staying with the fire department, based on what we heard today. I'm not gonna say I told you so.
However.
All right, I'll take it to my department heads. Anybody have anything they want to bring forward?
Hold on, Dana?
I do. I'm actually going to come up.
That's why I did that, yeah.
It's gonna be on the bottom of the screen.
Thank you. On the desktop.
Yeah, I don't have to minimize that or close it. I think we're done with that.
Here we go. So I don't know if any of the council got the opportunity to check their emails today, but the county, I think I had sent out an email previously about this particular property. They had kind of given us a heads up at one point and said, hey, someone's looking to develop the property at the corner of US 27 and State Road 70. And so an application was submitted, but we only received it today, which gives us just about 7 or 8 days to actually review the document to be able to make comments. Usually we would have a little bit more time. I would have come prepared with a full-blown review of everything that I've seen. Just from first glance, I do see a few things that don't quite seem to be in compliance with the LPRP, so I'll continue my review of that and provide comments in that regard. But I just wanted to go ahead and at least bring this request before council, make you aware of it, and see if there were any red flags, and to also make you aware of our deadline of October 17th to make comment. So right here, we have the northeast corner of 70 and 27. We'd have some maps to see. And they also provide a conceptual site plan. So there was a traffic study included. The traffic study indicated that this particular area of the parcel would be a 7-Eleven gas station. It appears that these two other potential areas that would be subdivided out are undecided at this time. Let me see if I can zoom in. So yeah, they just list commercial uses. And there's some inconsistencies in their application entirely. So like here, they're talking about B2 use all throughout here, but their application is only for a B3 PD, which is a different zoning district. But throughout their application, they mention the B2 district many, many times. So I noticed that as an inconsistency. I think they said that the internal roads would remain internal, not dedicated to Highlands County, or I guess at any point the town of Lake Placid. They have this area here that would be retention, it seems like, and maybe another 1 acre commercial tract and a couple other tracts. But so far, I'm definitely going to have some comments about how this applies to the LPRP. They made some comments in the resolution about landscaping and how it would comply to certain sections of the code that aren't our code. They mentioned xeriscaping, which we don't talk about that in our latest landscaping code. So they provided a letter of intent. It also didn't fully make sense. See, the proposed development regulations are designed to be consistent with the B2 zoning district, but they applied for a B3 PD. So I really just wanted to bring this to your attention. Like, the references that they have don't make sense for the developments that they're bringing in. They're saying environmental clearance wouldn't be required because the parcel is bona fide ag, and that's not the intent of, you know, once they convert the parcel for commercial uses, it will not be bona fide ag. So that's really not the intent of that section of the code. There's just a few things that I just kept picking out, but I want to give council the opportunity to make any comment if they have any concerns right off the bat, or you can email me comments. I'll take them into consideration. Because we won't be in the sunshine, I'll have to rephrase, take it under consideration, think it over, and then send it on as the town planner of the town of Lake Placid.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I also got this today from Ms. Berry, and I think that we ought to just authorize planning and legal staff to take a closer look at this and make any recommendations they feel are appropriate to make sure it is in compliance with the Lake Placid Regional Plan. If you remember this, you may remember several years ago, the owner of this property, they put together a couple of parcels. They've, you know, as people are wont to do, they've figured out how to make this property very valuable. I just want to make sure that I would hope that Highlands County would want to make sure that there is a plan for the entire parcel, and that they aren't just doing part of this and then they planned a few of these out parcels, and then they haven't even planned for the rest of the parcel under that ownership that they asked to be put together several years ago. Whether or not they're gonna split this and sell it, or, you know, they should make sure that there's an overall plan, and that we should be asking to make sure that even though they're going to have to be providing water and wastewater on site, you know, that it's put in place so that when we are close enough to provide utilities from our regional utility down there, we can hook up. I mean, it's kind of strange to me in the sense that it's one thing to be saying, yeah, we're gonna do this, and know that if it's a convenience store, what the water and wastewater requirements are, but now if all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 other commercial things that you have not said exactly what the intensities or use are, you know, how are they gonna be planning in particular for septic and those kinds of things? So I was surprised as I took a very quick read through it early this afternoon. There were some things where we ought to ask about, you know, if commencement of don't happen by certain dates, it negates it, but this needs, you know, we need to make sure there's very clear landscaping, maintenance, you know, language in there. So, I mean, I have every faith that Dana and Bert can do this. I just want to make sure that we give them our okay to be a watchful eye out of this. And I don't mean this in any negative way about Highlands County planning and zoning, but they're understaffed right now. And so I think this is a good thing for us to kind of stay on top of this and be working through, in particular with them not having a zoning director now, those kinds of things, so.
I agree. Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring it back to council now. You want to start? You got anything?
I don't have anything today.
What?
Well, I mean, it just kind of all came up through the meeting.
Wow. Well, we appreciate that. Ray?
No, I'd like to thank, we have some stakeholders here from Placid Lakes and from Lake June Point, and I think what just probably needs to be said that we're still committed as we move forward, that in the coming weeks or months that we are in fact going to have a workshop in regards to what we're doing in the septic to sewer thing. It was interesting today, I mean, in the last several days, we've got more information in from DEP about, Lake June's now been added to the impaired list. And we are going to have to decide, and I appreciate, Bert and Kevin made a good presentation to our legislative delegation last Wednesday, I think it was, someday last week. So I think as we get more information, then we'll probably have to prioritize which projects we're going to be able to go forward with, because it seems unlikely that we are going to be able to move forward with the entire suite of them. And I just, since these folks made an investment in their time, I wanted to make sure that we kind of recommitted to, before we make any decisions, we'd have that workshop, but that I know Kevin is continues to gather information, and at some stage we'll talk about prioritization and how we're going to do things. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate the job they did on the legislative budget request.
Charlie?
I'd just like to update with Eva, or Eva, you can actually do it if you want. You did all the heavy lifting on the
The FERDAP
FERDAP grant.
FERDAP grant, looks like they extended that to September 15th, so it's going to be longer before we find out. We had to have it in by the August 31st, but then they extended that deadline to the 15th, so it's going to
We
be a little
anticipate
longer.
an answer at the end of this month, though,
I
probably.
anticipate it at the end of this month, but I don't think that's going to happen.
We'll know if that's been
Next step is
funded.
to give them a call, like, next couple of weeks, to get a more of a closer ETA.
But we haven't forgot about that. She did all the work.
Okay, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, can I just mention, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. I think for our staff to know, the county commission did something interesting here recently in that they, for the first time, utilized some TDC money, for recreational maintenance and all that. And I'm not going to get into the reasons why they did it, but they in fact did it. And I think we need to be mindful as we move forward that if we're going to be utilizing those tourist development dollars for recreational facilities maintenance, then the municipalities may want to be having a conversation about that as well.
Interesting. Okay. All right, anything else come before council?
Colleen Charles, 522 Sunset Point Drive. I just have a couple items. One is, on behalf of my husband Gary, I want to again go for the record that the sound, and I don't know that it's the sound, but it's the microphones in here, that it's not ADA compliant. He came to the utilities meeting the other day, and a lot of people, and the feedback we're getting is they just can't hear anything. I noticed for the town council members, if you talk closer, it's a little better. This microphone is really, when everybody comes up, if they're not right on it. So I really ask Kevin again, I think it's the microphones. I think really the quality of the microphones. I appreciate the town council members that talk and are conscious and that do talk close, but the ones that are talking back like this, you cannot hear a thing. So we really need to get that fixed for people that have hearing impairment in order to be ADA compliant.
And so you know, we have contacted Bassett, who was the company that installed this equipment. They've been down once, but there wasn't enough time to do anything before our special meeting. So at some point, they're going to come down and do an analysis, and hopefully we'll get that resolved, even if we have to replace the equipment.
Interesting, Dana, at that microphone, we could hear. So
You can always hear me.
No, we could hear. So I really think it's quality of microphones. It's not sound panels and that, it's these microphones. The The second item is, you mentioned somebody, did you say Bert gave a presentation at a legislation meeting on something?
I said that Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Harris
Okay.
met with the legislative delegation has a meeting each year at the county commission chambers. And they made a presentation, I'll leave it up to them, I mean, to ask for additional monies from the state of Florida for the purposes of paying for utility hookups.
Could we get a copy of that presentation? Is it to be posted on the website? Do you just want to email it, or how can we see a copy of that
It
presentation?
was not a PowerPoint presentation, it was just a verbal presentation, and we can give you the document that we presented to them, which is just their legislative document on the ask for
Appreciate that.
$5 million direct legislative appropriation, but as far as the presentation, that was Mr. Harris
It's
describing.
available on the county's website.
The Highland County? What was the date of the meeting?
It was last
I think it was last Wednesday, if I remember correctly. It's the legislative delegation meeting.
Okay.
They
Senator Rawl.
you would be able to go on the website, I think, and see exactly word for word what I said.
Okay.
Would have been the 4th, October 4th.
October 4th, okay. And then earlier during the Dollar General presentation, Mr. Harris, you said, oh, we're going to talk about sewer later.
Yes?
Was that regarding this, or is there another?
No,
So
the council has expressed an interest in requiring the dollar store to install a sewer line all the way from our existing service up to their new store. And they're saying, oh, that costs too much money, we can't afford to do it. So it was simply postponing the decision on that issue until the next reading of their ordinance.
Okay, got it. I guess I understood it as later in this meeting, you were going to talk about sewer.
No,
Okay.
that was just punted until the development agreement would be properly before council.
Great,
And that's
okay,
the agreement that says all of the improvements that they're to make.
okay, thank you.
And that is simply for their sewer, that has nothing to do with the larger sewer project.
Okay. All right, any other comments come before town council? If not, meeting adjourned.